Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. Welcome to another episode of From Felon to Fabulous. It's a show for you to help you see that you can be fabulous too. No matter what you've been through, you can get to the next level of your greatness. I'm Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge, and I'm so happy to be the co host here with the Professor of Change and the visionary focus of this show. It's Brenda Ringwood. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am fabulous and I am unstoppable.
Oh, absolutely. And you look good too. So
Ah,
we love that new promo that we just were able to put on from Felon to Fabulous. We getting kind of fancy here right now, huh? We're putting the F
mm.
in fabulous, right?
Technology, it's good when it works.
Yes, 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 indeed. So, as always, when we start the show, we like Brenda to really give us a focus of why this show was created and what we look to do each and every week with From Felon to Fabulous. So, Brenda, tell us how this show came to be.
This show came to be because felons are fabulous. The ones who want to change their mindset. And there's some that don't, and that's okay. That's their decision, their choice. But people can change. If they want to change, they can change. If they want to do better, they can do better. If they want to change that mindset, they can change their mindset. It is all about the focus of the mind and where they're going. And I'm not talking about rich and famous, a lot of money. I am talking about turning from a life of crime to a life of productivity, becoming a great member of society, doing good. We get stereotyped, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way at all. People have done their time. It's time to move on. And these shows that we do are about people that are not in and out of the system, but people who have stayed out and are doing great things with their life and should no longer be labeled an ex-con. Even though it says ex-con, you're still labeled with that convict behind it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we've got someone who has stayed out as our special guest this evening. He has been out, he has been free, he has been shot free of that label X for over 14 years now. And over that time, he's done some amazing things. He's gone from goon enforcer to incarceration to an award-winning actor who has
Mm-hmm.
been able to play some of the roles that he used to have in real life. And he has definitely found his fabulousness. And the thing we love about this person is that he gives it all to the glory of God. It's nothing about him, it's all about the God in him that has him having this fabulous success that he is going to share with you today. So let's welcome to the stage actor extraordinaire Charles D. Clark. Hey, Charles.
What's up? It's an unstoppable day or night, should I say? What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
Hey, how
I'm
are you, my
quiet.
friend?
Mm-hmm.
Blessed and highly favored. Thanks for having me on this wonderful platform. I'm honored. I'm grateful. God gets the glory. And it's just an honor to be here.
Well, it
Well,
is an
we're glad
honor to
you're
have
here.
you
We're glad,
here.
glad you're taking that time.
Likewise, well worth it.
Yeah, I know you told Denzel to take five on the set so you could come be a part of this fabulous show. So we
I
we
wish.
apologize, we apologize to Denzel in advance, but we'll get you back to him pronto. But
One
listen,
day, one day,
say that again.
one day it would happen. One day.
Oh yeah, we speaking it into existence. That your fabulous journey is just at its beginning point. And speaking of that, we call the show From Felon to Fabulous because we want to chart the journey of where our guests have gone from. Sometimes it may be the lowest of lows to where now they're on that upward climb all the way to the next levels of their greatness. And even though we had a bio, we could say all these things that you've done, all these things that you're doing right now. We believe that nobody can tell us about Charles D. Clark better than Charles D. Clark. So why don't you take 30 seconds to a minute and formally introduce yourself to our Felons to Fabulous audience?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Charles D. Clark. I am an award-winning SAG-AFTRA actor. producer and transformational speaker. I've been acting for almost 14 years now. I landed my first role when I was released from prison the same year of 2009. I'm a person that always give God the glory. Thus far, my journey and travels from the dark side to the light side has been nothing but magnificent. And I can definitely relate to becoming a felon to fabulous amongst these wonderful people here on this platform.
So that's a great segue. So when you think of the phrase "from felon to fabulous," what comes to mind to you personally?
I think the foundational elements of an individual. I think we're all born fabulous. We're all born to love, to elevate, to understand that our passion, our purpose, our passion. But we also understand too the traditional ways of this world, experiences, upbringings, demographic situations that can derail you from such, where no one has a perfect life. So when I think about Felon to Fabulous, it lets me know that even though I made a mistake, even though I went through a tribulation, God still saw the fabulous in me by aligning me with the right people, such as y'all, aligning me in the right experiences to say, hey, you know what? This wasn't a punishment. This is more of a correction for you to know who you really are and why you're here. So when I look at myself now as being an actor, I pulled for so many different experiences from when I was a felon. And actually, I believe I was a felon in the streets because I was locked up in the mind and the spirit. There are people here now who are still locked up in their minds, who never did a day in jail or prison. So I take it as being finding a way to being free for the right reason. Because as y'all said before, getting out is one thing, staying out is a much different level.
I love it. I love it. So, if you don't mind, however much you want to share, tell us about your journey to and through incarceration.
Yes. Yeah, without going to some very deep things, I'm gonna carry to my grave, obviously. Yeah, I came from a great family. My dad died when I was 5, going on 6. He was 32. He served in the military. And him and my mother supposed to get married almost 3 weeks later. But unfortunately, God called him home at such a young age. And that had a very big impact on me, as any little boy who lost their dad at such a young age. And my mom tried to do all that she could to be there for me, but I was also there for her because she was going through pain and struggle, losing her first love, the guy she's supposed to marry. And she put me in sports. I did martial arts. I played football, baseball, definitely an athlete. And I remember how the other kids' dads would be there cheering them on. Good job, son. Let's go, son. Get to home base, son. Make a touchdown, son. Just hearing that constantly. And you would think of hearing those type of words would be words that would be loving. But to me, it was annoying. It was aggravated. It was hurtful because my dad was never said to me. And I kind of envied that in a lot of ways. So I wanted that back. I wanted that type of that father likeness to be in my life. And just so happened I felt it in the streets. And I loved it so much that I was willing to do anything to keep it. So as time went along, I went from, you know, gang banging, just being around, learning the ropes of the street life, the nightlife, from pimps to killers to hustlers to everything you could possibly name. And it came to a point in my life as I got older that I wasn't in the streets no more because I was looking for a father figure or I wanted that father likeness. I was in it because I became great at what I was doing. I had a hunger to protect people and love people because I felt like the people that was close to me, if I wasn't there or was involved in that vicinity, that something would happen to them as I lost my dad. So my pain and my commitment, my loyalty to the streets was out of love, literally love, not because I want to be a bad boy and look at me, I'm tough and get money. It was really because it was confident that pain that I endured when I lost my dad to certain people in the streets. And, you get older, you get taller, you get stronger, you start learning more, your voice will get deeper, you feel the manhood. I had a fighting background, so I use those tools to my advantage. Excuse me. And I became very good at it. I can tell you this. If God wasn't a forgiving God, I had a one-way ticket to hell first class with gasoline draws on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Excuse me again. So when I see people who wants to be in that life, people who think that life is cool, it gives them some kind of burning points. I feel bad for them because they don't understand that you don't have to go that route. You don't have to be a part of that. I've seen people head get blown off right in front of my face where their hot brains hit my collar and sizzle from a shotgun sawed off. I've seen a kid get hit by a car and, to where it looked like like Jello was out of a little uniform because it completely just castrated them because people trying to get away from the cops said, okay, who's in the streets? I've seen that stuff. And when you start becoming immune to that type of, level in the streets, because we all know streets have levels. Everybody wants to say, oh, I've been deep in the streets. I've seen this, but we know the ones that really been there. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, when I didn't have a conscience temporarily because I trained myself or allowed the devil to train me not to have feelings. The things that I was into, the things that I witnessed, you can't have feelings. You can't have no sympathy. There was no way you could survive if you did.
Right.
And if you did have that, as someone who was street smart, they would find it as a weakness, and they would use it to their advantage. So, you can't be a goldfish with a shark mentality. You have to be a shark with a shark mentality. And that's what I learned. So I've never been away from God. I even prayed at times, even when I was in the streets. And, people always say, well, did you find God in prison or jail? And typically that's what you hear from people as ex-felons or, oh, he fell up in, fell religion in jail. No, I've been known God. There was times where God spoke to me and I was just disobedient. But for some reason, he saw that I was going to be fabulous if I just listened to him. If I just tune off the noise of the world, of the people. And, it brings me back to, we talk about church and Christians and whatever religion people serve. I don't judge them, but I will say this, though. I remember there was one time where I was at a church, and I'm not going to say no names because I'm not a snitch and I'm not a person to bring anybody down, but it was a specific church, a known church. And I wanted to donate some money. I wanted to go into church, but I had on my street clothes, but it was, it was nice.
Right.
And I was told by a person of that church that I'm nothing but the devil, and the devil's not allowed into the church. I never forget that. It was a bit more to it than that, but that was along the lines of it. Mm-hmm. And I say to myself, how can people expect people to change when they come to change and you don't allow them to? And that really bothered me. And I said to myself at that time, if I ever change and be on the other side, I'm going to do something about this. But at that time, I say, well, I'm going to die in this life. It is what it is. I don't care, whatever.
They took away your hope.
Yeah, it did. Because I'm saying to myself, like, what kind of credit application or what kind of standard do you have to enter to the house of God?
Yeah. Brenda and I was having that very same topical conversation earlier today about how can you, let's just use the show. How can you go from felon to fabulous when everybody still looks at you as a felon, no matter what you do, no matter 14 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years later, different occupations, different destinations, different stations in life, and people still want to hold you back for something that you made many years ago. How do you? So let me ask you the question. How have you been able to shake that, knowing that you still may have some dream killers, naysayers, and crabs in the barrel around you, or in your not in your circle, but in your area, still trying to pull you back?
Well, I would say, fortunately, I've been blessed because I'm all about action. Just like you, Brother Terrence, and you, Sister Brenda, actions speak louder than words. You cannot deny something that is right there that exists. And I think that's where most of us have to present when we come out of these situations, whether it's prison, whether it's a homeless shelter, or whatever that tribulation was. You silence people by doing the work. And that's what all I've been doing. I was there during the Baltimore riot, which became bigger than the riot in L.A. I was there while it was happening. I got a call for some of the pastoral people up there and some leaders. At the time when I was doing my transformational speaking, I had already been in the Baltimore area like a couple of weeks beforehand. So they knew that I had the capability to come up there and be some type of impact. There's all going online and on my social media pages with pictures of me with the mayor at the time and other people down there. Pastor Jamal Bryan and other political and high figures in the religious world. And I say to say this is that I remember when I was down there, the youth, the kids who was angered, who was part of, turning in the buildings and developing and increasing the rubble down there, they was hurt. And when I went to one of the kids, he was like, "How do you know how we feel?" And once I told him my testimony, he listened. And I did understood the power of why God put me in that position as testimonies that y'all have for y'all journey. In order to tap into a person's soul and spirit, your soul and spirit had to endure somewhat of the pain, if not the exact match of what they've been through. I can't tell you if fire is hot if I never burnt my hand.
Right.
My hand has to be burned by that same fire. It don't have to be the biggest fire as yours, but at least I know it burns, and I know the healing process. And I'm gonna make this point to you, Brother Terrence, and you, Sister Brenda. The reason why I have a lot of respect for y'all too, because and I'm gonna go from Brother Terrence right now. I just met you, Sister Brenda, but what you're doing is phenomenal with the show. I remember when I met Brother T. Brother T had all of these, awards and degrees and accomplishments, and there was other people who had them too. The difference is that Brother T came from actually putting in the work, providing the purpose because of his passion, and showing people that you're not a potential, you are a destined. Anybody can be a potential. Anybody can be motivated. But when you transform a person, when you actually show them, this is why you're here, this is why God has not done with you yet. To me, that's bigger than any type of accomplishment there. Because if you're not doing the work that you are known for, that paper is dead. Those accomplishments are dead. Then you're going to introduce Sister Brenda, what you're doing, Felon to Fabulous. Think about that concept. You are giving hope, as well as Brother T, to people who might not have the opportunity that I had to come out of prison, who might, we living in a world now to where you are given a label, just like in prison, you are given a number. My number, 10249-084. I would never forget it. And people always ask me,
86031. That's
exactly. And people will say,
currency.
Exactly. And people will say with Charles, why would you not let the number go? How can I let something go that changed my life? I did almost 8 years for that number. I felt myself with that number. That number is the reason why you have the Charles D. Clark that you have now. So when we in life, it's about what you accept, and then when you accept it, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point, and I'm so glad that you shared that with us. And because many things that we are labeled with, many things that we are tagged with, many things that are tattooed in our minds or even on our bodies are reminiscence of something that we went through. And there's a phrase out there that says that if you go through, you got to grow through. And that second part is important. It's you will never forget that number, because that number allowed you to grow to where you are right now. I've been talking about roses for weeks now, and I guess it's a carryover from Valentine's Day. I didn't get any, but it's still time. I'll send you my link after this.
A long time ago.
But listen, the fabulousness of rose. We often talk about, Charles and Brenda, we talk about people want to see you because of your glory, but they don't want to hear about your story. People love to see roses because they are in bloom and they are glorious and they look pretty and they make you feel a certain way. But people fail to realize that before that rose became a rose, it was a seed. And God saw the fabulousness of the rose when it was just a seed, but he intentionally put it in the dirt. so that it could go through some things, so it could go through some dark times, so it would have to struggle to see the light, so that it would appreciate all of the fabulousness that it has in full bloom. Many of you who are watching this right now trying to figure out why this show makes any sense, why did we name it From Felon to Fabulous, is because we know, even as you may be incarcerated, maybe somebody got this to you behind walls, we still see the fabulousness in you at your present point as give you the tools, the tips, the strategies, and the motivation so that you too could have that fabulous journey that Brother Charles is sharing with you tonight. So if you don't get anything else that he said, yeah, that number, you'll never forget it, but realize you never should forget it, because it's part of your journey to the fabulousness that, if you haven't already got there, it's on the way.
Yeah.
It's that scar on the body. You know how you got it, but it's healed. But it's a reminder of what you went through to get healed.
Right. Well, that's it's amazing what Brother T about the rose. I told somebody a couple months ago is that everybody wants the prettiest rose, but don't want the ugliest thorn.
No. Mm-mm.
The most prettiest, most developed rose has the biggest thorn that you can't see, and you're going to get pricked. And you're going to get it, but you have to endure something. So when you talk about the rose, that hit home. So yes, I mean, look, we only get one life. Sometimes your first chance is your last chance. And a lot of times, like I said to myself, I don't want to say this acting stuff because I respect the arts, but but as far as acting itself, I really believe that my testimony is really the anchor. It's the transporter. Because we know entertainment is huge. It's the biggest platforms, or the public figures, or motivational speakers, and all those other grand things that pushes the world into the next generation. So I've definitely prayed with a lot of people, inspired a lot of people above the arts. And I think about Muhammad Ali. He was the greatest of all time, not because of his unorthodox systematic skill set in the ring. It's what he did outside the ring that made him a champion.
Yeah.
What made him the greatest of all time. So I said to myself, I can never be Muhammad Ali. That nobody can. But within my own rights, I want to be the best version of Charles D. Clark. So what can I do to have a stellar character and a stellar role outside of Hollywood?
I love that. And you made a great point, because it's what Muhammad Ali did with his platform that made him even greater than what he did in the ring. So let's roll back a little bit, because we didn't talk about how you evolved into the award-winning actor and producer that you are today. So take us back when you were a child, when you were the goon enforcer, when you finally had to do time. Was acting ever on your mind in those times of your life?
I'm gonna blow y'all mind. Every platform I've been on, Acting was nowhere even in my thought of my journey until when my grandmother visited me for the last time. So my grandmother, who's my dad's mom, rest in peace, Lucia Haley Clark. She didn't want to see me in those conditions in prison, so she didn't visit me for most of the bid. She actually came near the end of my bid, near the end of my sentencing. And I remember that my aunt came, my uncle Bubba brought up there to see me as a surprise. I had about maybe a year and a month left, something like that. So no, near the end. And what was so great about it when I saw her, it's like I just seen her yesterday, the day before, because I was rekindled with that moment with my grandmother. So I go into the visiting room. I'm seeing my grandma. She's in her pink, sweatsuit with a nice silver gray hair. I'm ready to go over there to her, and my aunt comes and tells me before I go over there, said, "Listen, your grandmother's sick. She has dementia. She has brain tumors, and she goes in and out. And basically, my grandma thought I was my dad. So for basically 2.5 hours of my visit, which is the entire visit, I had to act like my dad. I had to remember the things of my dad. I had to remember the things that we talked about, growing up. Him taking the pig bucket out, the pig slop out. Him bringing my grandma chicken every Wednesday from Golden Skillet. That was his thing. Chicken and strained beans, mashed potatoes, and biscuits. Him cutting the grass, whatever, she would say, I can, respond to it based on what I knew about my dad and what was told to me. After that visit, which was a very emotional visit, because I had to keep myself composed for her. When she left, I felt an emptiness. I felt the most excruciating pain that I never felt in my life. And the CO called me over to the desk. There's standard procedure for them to check you for contraband or whatever, but he didn't call me over there for that. He called me over there because he says, "Charles, I don't know what you plan on doing when you leave from here, bro." But he was like, "I just saw an Oscar moment, what you did with your grandmother." He said, "What you did for her," he said, you might want to consider being an actor. At that time, I'm not thinking about what he said. I just saw my grandma, and fast forward, she went home to the Lord before I got released from prison. And she was actually on my visiting list, in federal prison. But back when I was in prison, when you get released, even going to the halfway house, they allowed up to 3 visitors to meet you at the gate. And she was on that list, but she didn't make it. And I remember when I went to the halfway house, I was still grieving in pain. And my first visit, because I was on supervised for probation, supposed to be for 5 years, but because of my good behavior, I got off in 3. But anyway, my first visit, I went to my grandmother's house. I went to her back room she died, and I could smell that peppermint and lavender as it was yesterday. And for some reason, what that CO said about me being an actor, it just came up in my spirit. I done left prison. I'm out. I'm free. I'm gonna get my stuff together. I'm in my grandmother's house for the first time. It's her not being here. And then a couple of weeks later, I went to a little red carpet event. Remember, I'm still fresh out. I don't know about these red carpet stuff. I'm just, hey, my people say, hey, let's show you a little good time or whatever. And somebody said, I know somebody, or producer wise, who has a movie out there you need to, check out. And I think you'd be great for a part. It's a small part. But based on the description, you fit it. I'm just like, Grandma, what's going on? I'm looking over and lo and behold, God gets the glory. I got the part. It was like going towards November, right before Thanksgiving. So I did my first acting gig the same year I got out of prison. I got out of prison February 18th, 2009. And near November of 2009, I did my first role. never had no training, no nothing. And when I stepped on that set, shout out to Brian Ness for New Wave Productions. I played CJ in Premise of Duality. I knew what my grandmother meant. And so when I started doing my speaking engagements from that point on, I always tell everybody, my grandma gave me my first audition. She used her last moment to show me that this is what I'm supposed to do. So when y'all see, when I was driving those 13 hours to Chicago, sometimes I see my brother T and for Empire. When I used to drive 21, 22 hours for not even a 2-minute audition, not guaranteed to get it. People ask me, what made you do all of that? Not knowing it wasn't guaranteed. One thing for sure, God did not allow my grandmother to give our last moment in vain, and that was guaranteed. And whatever that was for, that's what pushed me. That's what keep driving. Every time I'm ready to go, I was used to ready to give up. Every time I didn't want to go drive all those hours, and you're spending this money, and sometimes things got tight. And remember, I got out of prison in 2009. My daughter was born in 2010, so I instantly became a dad. I was going back to. I went to college, for my bachelor's of science in psychology. Made the dean list 3 times, top 3 of my debate team. So I had all stuff going on, positive, of course. But it was that moment with my grandmother. She reminded me everything that my dad was, and because God called him home, the baton was passed to me. And I owe it to my grandmother. I owe it to the youth, the world. God first, I owe God, because he'd allowed me to get this far, to use my platform, as Brother said, Muhammad Ali did, to do such. So I was taking bit roles, independent roles. It might be like 2 or 3 lines here or there, because I knew that there's such a thing as a small role. Acting is acting. When someone finds something in you to be a part of their project, Robert De Niro did extra work and then bit roles work, and look at him now. From Clint Eastwood, Sidney Poitier didn't have it easy neither. All of the greats. But what I'm simply saying is that, and Brother T, you said this about the seed. Everybody wants to pick the harvest, but not plant the seed. Mm-hmm. And I look at people like me and Sister, Brenda, coming through the system. When we came out, the red flag was already planted. And I've learned one thing. I don't want to speak for you, Sister Brenda, but if so, then please tell me. I wasn't here to prove why I was what I was in the past. I was here to show what I am now for the future.
Yes, completely agree. Completely agree.
And Brother Terrence, you don't have to go to prison to have a testimony. I know you got a testimony because we've talked. Mm-hmm. And when you come up with the slogan, unstoppable, let's really think about the power in that word. And the way Brother T does it, hey, it's an unstoppable day. He's not saying it's an unstoppable day. He's letting you know that
you can do it. It's what you're going to make of it.
There you go. Mm-hmm. I've acknowledged you. Hey, it's a unstoppable day. And then you have felon to fabulous. Simple. No, bells and it's simple. And that's what I've learned in life. Simplicity will get you more results than anything.
Well, that's why that KISS method works.
Absolutely. Keep it simple, and y'all put whatever you want for that last S. But listen, and see, Brenda, I want you to jump in here, but I gotta tell this because I met Charles just like I met you originally through social media. Yeah, and I was just on social media looking to build followers and share the message of unstoppability. And I'm not sure how our connection came on social media, but it came. And this was right when he was really starting out. This is when he was unknown as an actor. This is when he was making those 13-hour drives to Chicago. And I remember we were talking online, and he told me he had something big he was coming to Chicago for, but he couldn't tell me what it was. And we met at one of the local hot dog shops in Chicago. Took him out for lunch. I don't even think he had gone to the audition yet, Brenda.
Nope.
And then the next couple of days, he was calling me because he was getting back on the road, going back home. But then as soon as he went back home, he was checking on his daughter. Then he had to go to California because he had to get his SAG card. And for those who don't know what SAG stands for, it stands for Screen Actors Guild. And if you even don't know what that means I'm a legit actor now, y'all.
Professional. It's the NCAA, NFL. Yes. Yep. Yes. That's what it is. Yep.
He has made it. and he got this role, and if he wants to talk about the role, Brenda and I, we know what the role was, and it was a hell of a role, and it became a hell of a ride, and it's just
It was
been
a hell of a show.
it was a hell of a show.
It was. And one thing I always say, I never forget prominent moments. Brother T, we met through the I Am Testimony Award show.
Yeah,
I was the I Am Testimony. Yeah.
Yeah.
And several brothers that was there. I connected with, but Brother T is the one that really stood out. I want to use the word less is more. And I remember too, when I did get the upgrade for Empire, before I went home, remember, you took me around the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I told you about it. And he never once mentioned it on social media. When I say this man, you can trust him with your life, you can trust him with your life. The only time that I had mentioned me getting upgraded on Empire with him being involved is when I came on his show. He was already out there then. That was one of the, to this day, I drove up there 8 times. The 8th time is when things changed for me. I never forget, they had overbooked the scene. There was too many, obviously extras. And one of the PAs remember me says, "Well, Charles, you drive a long way, don't you? You drive farther than anybody." I said, "Yes, I do. 13 hours of change." They said, "Well, we're not going to send you back home. We're going to keep you here. Matter of fact, we're going to put you in front of the crowd." Again, they was placing me as a blur here and there. So whatever. And one of the assistant directors came to me and says, "Man, look like you come out of prison or something, man. You big, whatever, That opened the door for me to share my testimony. I shared it. They came, they did a camera test, 3 looks. And before they was going to do, the scene, they told one of the goons with Exhibit to step down and told me to get in his spot.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, this was on Exhibit's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And we was on set for 16 hours. Let me tell you the power that Empire or Fox have. They was having rib eye, prime rib subs, pizzas, all these exotic other foods, hors d'oeuvres types. I mean, at
It's
1 or 2 in the morning.
What else were we supposed to do?
Yeah, it's like, but me, I'm like, usually if I'm on set, they have like little sub sandwiches or a bunch of chips or whatever, which they had it too, but
snacks.
But they had some real deal food there. And I was just saying, like, wow, you just see the elevation. And I'm sitting here with Exhibit. He told me about hip hop history, culture. I'm like, this is Exhibit. This is a West Coast legend, this is a rap legend. This guy, remember, Exhibit started off with The Rock and Gridiron Gang. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I left. I went back to my hotel that next morning, and I was so excited. I done got halfway home and realized I had an extra night at the hotel, and I didn't even use it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, whatever. Now, I was doing House of Cards. I was about to get upgraded on House of Cards, but the Kevin Spacey thing happened. We all know what happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got the audition and actually got the role, because they had changed the storyline, boom, But because of that, they kept their word. This 2 weeks later, after from Empire, that's when SAG notified me about being SAG eligible. And I was like, whoa, it's a game changer. And as soon as I was, getting things prepared, to join SAG, Empire called me back and they says, we want you to be one of Sean's main goons for the entirety of his character. As a matter of fact, Exhibit, I got love for you. They said Exhibit's real name. I never knew his real name. They said the entirety of Alvin's, you got to be cool to Exhibit to say that. Character, Sean. I was like, the entirety of his character, which means that as long as he's on there, I'm going to be on there.
Right.
I went back to Chicago the following week. I'm not used of the upgrade. I went to the extra section. So they're calling my name on the walkie-talkie, and I was like, I'm in the right spot. Like, what, And this one of the PAs is Charles, you upgraded. You're not supposed to be in the extra. You're supposed to be there on the other side. The other side. So I'm no longer in what we call the carpentry van, the white van like it's busted down. I'm in the Mercedes cab, where the doors open and the steps come out. And I'm just like, what is this? And it was a humbling experience because people didn't realize I earned that. You're talking about drop 13 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an extra, you're on set for another 10 or 12 hours, barely making $100 before even taxing it, just to drive back. There's times where I drove to Empire before I got upgraded. I drive 13 hours there. I take my shower at the rest stop. I already know I had my stop at. Took my shower, got dressed, go on set, and they didn't even use me. I'll be on set for like 7 or 8 hours. Then I have to leave there and have to drive straight back to Maryland because I was doing my TV One stuff then, with detective stuff or whatever, and drive straight there. Maybe an hour of sleep, maybe an hour, because I had to make that time frame stuff to be late. So when I tell people that I earn and I put in the work, from losing family members, I could make it to the funerals because I was on set. I had an obligation. From times when my daughter was sick, so when I had to remember a lot of stuff on the ID channel, I couldn't get there, fast enough. Of course, if my daughter's sick and if she needs me, I don't care what it is, I'm leaving. But in a professional way. Those are things that you have. There's times where I didn't feel good. Now my body was breaking down. I always been a guy, been in shape. I came out of prison built. When you travel those roads like that, there ain't no such thing as eating healthy. Those the noodles, or Whopper, peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're like, man. So it's a journey, and I want people to understand that it's those parts of the journey that makes it authentic of who you are and why that you are fabulous. You're not fabulous because of so much of what you become or became. It's because what you did to become that and what you are now. And Empire did something for my career and to this day. Shine, Exhibit's character, he was the baddest villain on the entire season. When Exhibit came on the show and when I came up under him, we had the highest rating seasons as a villain on that show. The first show that ever decreased the ratings of a big sporting event, the Major League Baseball Championship, came on a Wednesday when Empire was at its highest, and they lost almost 30% ratings because people would rather watch Empire than watch the game. That's how powerful it was. Yeah,
And
so
here's what I love. Here's what I keep resonating with me. You played a character on Empire, but you always give the glory to the Empire of God, and that is something.
Mhm.
If I'm not going to speak to their character, but every other character on that show, I guarantee it. Every time they give glory, they don't give glory to God first,
Not
and
all, not
you do
all.
you do that each and every time, and that's what I love about your story and what you're sharing. I do want to make sure that Brenda gets a chance to ask you some questions, because I know she's got some. She has walked some of the same path that you walk. So,
Yes,
you got any
sure.
questions, Brenda?
Well, when I was in prison, we watched Empire. It was
Oh,
the thing. So yeah, so I was from 2014 to 2018,
hmm.
and man, women were fighting to get to that TV. It was a big deal. It
And
was a big deal.
I've heard, and I didn't know that. I heard that in prison, I heard people actually got stabbed in the men's prison. What I mean? It was that was their outlet, So, but yeah,
Yes, it
go
was
ahead.
there.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so you you're playing a role, a life that you lived. So there was no rehearsal for you.
That's why I was authentic. Um,
Mhm.
I felt kind of strange in a way because I was like, God, you being funny right now. You and my grandma up there joking, like, okay, but and that's what a lot of people on the set was like, man, who didn't know about my testimony at the time. At one point, like some of the people here and there knew about it. Then it word traveled on the set. Man, you really was blah blah blah. Hey, look, I got this church group that I'm with who got kids, and can you? And you start networking, and again, it goes
Mhm.
back to the testimony. Um, Exhibit was he was very very how can I? What's the word I want to use? He showed me a lot of love and respect because of that. When he felt I drove that far,
Mm-hmm.
just to be a part of that crew. Because we know Exhibit got a testimony too. He's a real he's from the streets. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when you have two guys who understand that lingo, understand that world, and like, man, we are both here, a legend and an upcoming legend. Because I'm claiming it. We
You
all legends.
definitely mentioned.
Um, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal, and I knew then. I says, God, I can't quit now. Grandma, I can't quit now. This is it. So to able to portray something that I once was and not pay a penalty for it, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Was a very it was a very unorthodox transitional experience. Just like me playing detective. I started getting my name started traveling, and every time there was a detective role for a black guy with a bald head that was buff and whatever, they called me, and they were like, "Well, Charles, how you know how to play these detectives so well?" I'm like, "I was a criminal,
Right.
and I've been around them. I know how they talk. I know how they,
Or
You
the
probably
lingo.
could write some of the scripts that you were a part of.
yeah, yeah." So that point that y'all two, and that's why I want people to understand. God will turn your mess into a message if
Mm-hmm.
you are willing to be the messenger. God has put that in my spirit right in to say that. God will turn your mess into a message if you're willing to be the messenger. That's all
And
what
and
I
you
am.
know that is so true. And let me tell you, even with everything that I'm doing right now, I had a Christian conference, a faith-based conference last June called Safe in His
Yes.
Arms. So, I'm putting out emails trying to get everybody. It was a free event. All the people who came to speak donated their time, their travel. It was a beautiful event. And I got an email from one of my past people that said, "You've got to be kidding me, right? The fact that you would even be doing a faith-based conference is laughable." Because he
Wow.
was from the past. He wasn't part of my charges or anything, but the kicker is that he was a pastor.
Yes.
So he was not opening his eyes to see the change. And I just, my reply, first off, was to ignore. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, you being an educated man, supposed to be believing in Christ, supposed to be forgiving, cannot see the change that the Bible has on people, that it cannot make those changes. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
And
That's
it
that's
was
deep.
sad. It was just very sad because he could not see past the sin. He couldn't see past the crime. And I tell people all the time, we all have issues. I don't care what it is. And you're probably sitting right next to somebody that's already breaking the law but just ain't been caught yet. You don't have a clue. And if you want to take it even a step further, you're sitting next to somebody in church, because I was that person you were sitting next to in church that got busted. So you're never too good, and we're all just one choice away. One choice away. And sometimes you can go just by being associated with somebody, especially in the feds.
Conspiracy is that's yeah. I I can't quote every scripture in the Bible, and I don't know everything in the Bible, but if I'm not mistaken, God used people in the Bible that most people would criticize or cut off to create the word that it is. Moses had a stuttering problem,
Hmm.
yet he was a prolific speaker and advocate for God. Saul was a Christian killer. Anybody who served God, he would kill him. And it's one of the most greatest books of the Bible. And then he's Saul to Paul. When Jesus was traveling and walking from Jerusalem and other cities and was spreading the gospel from the Heavenly Father, when his feet got washed, it wasn't a virgin. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a whore.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What that tells you is that God looks for those who are lost, because the saved can't be saved. The unjust is the ones that He looks for,
Hmm.
because ultimately, when you accept that purpose in which why you're going through what you're going through, there's somebody who's not going to be able to go through it. There's going to be somebody who's going to be able to manifest themselves who they're supposed to be. So God has certain people. God trusts you with the biggest battles, and us three amongst others against in the world, we understand the assignment. The
Hmm.
assignment is, are you going to accept? The Bible said that many was called, but few was chosen. It also say that obedience is better than sacrifice.
That's right. And that change, when you see that change,
Yes,
that's the testimony. So why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't you want to see that from somebody that's been in that situation, that's committed crimes, that's broken laws, that's done all these things, that's been to prison, to see that change? Isn't that why we have correctional facilities?
and
Isn't that
yeah,
isn't that why it's
That's the
called
whole point.
correction? No.
That's right. I mean, some people don't
exactly.
learn. I'm not saying that it's for everybody learns, but when you have that person that does, then give them that credit, because it's exceptionally hard. It's not, and it's hard to face it. It's hard to admit it. It's hard, as Terrence would say, to be accountable for your actions and what you did, to be
Exactly.
responsible for it. And when people are stepping up and doing that and erasing that shame and that guilt and everything that comes with that, give them a little bit of credit. And that's part of the reason why we do the show. So I'll take it even as that pastor. The second pastor was a church that I went to, and when I got out, I had lunch with him, and he had enough nerve to tell me that I wasn't saved. Well, and he had every right to judge me, and it really bothered me. Now, since then, he's given me an apology. But the pastor of the church that I go to now, when I told him my story, said, "Will you come speak about it? People
Mm,
need to hear that story." So, three different pastors, one didn't care. One pretended that he was better than I was and didn't believe anything I was telling him, just to come back later and say that, I do owe you an apology. That takes a lot to do. And the third, hmm. So, my moral to that story is they're still just men.
yes.
They're
Yeah.
not. They're just
Yeah.
men. They have an
Yeah.
opinion. They
Yep.
they have everything that everybody else has. They just know more scripture than they're educated than the average person. So
Right.
I'll give them that credit, but they don't have the right to judge you.
And there's something that says an educated fool is still a fool at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And we know that on this journey from felon to fabulous, that you're going to run into the fools. You're going to run into the educated fools. You're going to run into the non-educated fools. You're going to run into just the plain old outright fools. The key is that you continue to be fabulous in spite of the people that want
That's
to
right.
bring you down or want to keep you where you were or want to control the narrative of you. And the one thing we want people to know who are watching this show, who are in this situation, is that you still control the narrative. You still have the opportunity to go from where you are to the fabulous person that you were created to be. So
Amen.
Charles, I want to. I know we could talk to you forever and ever about your story and about your journey, but we want to bring it full circle to where do you see the fabulous Charles D. Clark going next? What's on the horizon for you?
I'm trying to get a major lead role in a franchise type movie or TV show.
Whoop.
I want to. I'm going for the Oscar and the Emmy because we know that's the biggest stage of entertainment platform, 80 million plus. Not so much to say, hey, look at me, I'm Charles D. Clark. I have won an Oscar and Emmy, but I want to give God the glory in front of 80 plus million people. I want to summarize my testimony in front of 80 plus million people and hope at least out of 80 million, at least, even if it's just 1,000, out of that 80 million is inspired and says, you know what? I was going to kill myself. I want to live another day. I was going to rob the bank, but instead, I'm going to go back to college or I'm going to pursue my career. Those two things to me is much bigger than an award. Although I want to get the award, but I look at the biggest thing at hand, the foundation of why God has me here. The award is not carried by the winner, it's carried by the person who's about the tribulation. And when I hold that award up, I would tell the world that this award is not for me. It's for everybody out there who never thought they can be who the world trying to keep them from being. The experiences keep them from being. The dream killers keep them from being. And that's my ultimate goal. Because giving God the glory in front of 80 plus million people is going to send a very, very powerful energy, message,
That's right.
and sign
And
that, yeah,
go ahead. I was going to say, Charles, what is our sole purpose for being here?
it's all for God.
It's to glorify God. That is our
Yeah,
calling. That's
that's
what the
that's
Bible says. It is to glorify God. So the best way to do that is through making the necessary changes to become the better version of yourself daily. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to God. He's the creator. And for people to judge you and say, yeah, he's just using religion. You know what I tell people? You're doggone right, I'm using religion because it is that. And I use the word, actually hate the word religion, but my faith is what got me through it. My faith is what is changing me now. And my faith is what's going to keep me going. And my faith is what's going to get me to heaven.
well, we have to realize one thing: Jesus is perfect. God is perfect. And look how people
That's right.
disrespect them. So what do you
Hmm.
expect they're gonna do to us? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
My most important thing is just to test the people that I'm assigned to and keep it moving till God calls me home.
that's right. And let your actions speak word louder than the tongue.
Exactly.
Because mhm.
Exactly.
It's
All
great
you
to
have to do
say
is just
that,
present that.
but
Yeah.
sometimes just let it do. Just let it show. This proof is in the pudding. And so you don't wake up one day and say I'm going to change, and all of a sudden
Excuse me.
you wake up one day and say I'm going to change, and it takes time to prove that you've changed. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that enough time is going by that people see that the change is real, that people can
Almost
see that
definitely.
change can happen, and that people like you and me can make a difference. And we're not a piece of dirt. We were that seed buried in that dirt. And let me tell you, my seed was pretty far down, and I had to climb a long way to see that sunlight. But my family made sure I was watered and fed. And through that, I was able to come out. God gave me the best support system. And, people who are incarcerated, I witnessed women never get a visit, never could call family members. They wouldn't answer the phone, never had money on their books, never had books in the mail. And that's a very lonely place. And so those type of families are not understanding that, yes, that person might have did some pretty bad things, but you are part of the recidivism rate because you're not trying to support and help. Now, granted, if it's somebody that's in their fifth time and they don't respect it, I probably wouldn't send them any money either. But I would probably still send a letter. I would probably still let them call.
God didn't give up on us, so
No.
we should give up on our fellow man. Yep.
That's right. So give us some words of wisdom for our people watching. Give us some words of wisdom for people who just got out.
Realize why you went and why you shouldn't go back. To me, I think that there's power within itself. I can give a long speech, but again, it's simplicity. You have an opportunity to get it right. You have an opportunity to show the world that that's not who you were. It was a mistake. You have an opportunity to become better than what you've ever been, what you've ever experienced. Don't allow the enemy to rob you, but reverse it. Rob the enemy. Let the enemy know that you come up for everything, and God will stand with you through it all. In the rain of blessings, you have to get muddy.
That's right.
You're still blessed.
Man, that is true. So give us some wisdom to the family members of those who have people that are incarcerated.
The same love you had for them when you was out there, when they was out, have the same love when they was in. Don't change it. It's that simple. And let's be real. You're gonna find out who your real family and friends are. I said in the post, and it got so many responses. When you understand the difference between family and kin folks, your life will be much better.
That's right. That's right. And I will tell you, my relationship got stronger with my daughter and my mother while I was in there. It got stronger. It got stronger. The other thing too is people don't understand what that person's going through. And on both sides, either the family member that's on the outside or the person who's incarcerated, you don't really know their story. So don't judge what you see in front. Don't judge it because you don't know. And like just look at your career. If you would have went to try to get a normal job, which I'm assuming you did.
Yes.
It was exceptionally hard because you were a felon. And you have to make that known. So you have a strike against you when you go in. Oh, by the way, I'm a felon before we get started. Just so they can say, I'm sorry, we don't hire felons. And then if they do hire felons, they say, well, what did you do? We don't hire violent crimes, or we don't hire sex crimes, or we don't hire this, or we don't hire. So you've already got 2 strikes against you before you even get in the door. And people don't realize these felons who have great jobs, the amount of work that they went through to get there. And I'm assuming that prison really didn't have an effect on an acting career. It might have helped a little bit, but getting you hired, did it have an effect?
Well, I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. Me getting a job when I was out wasn't difficult for me.
Good for you.
Because I was locked up with people in the political field, people who those CEOs.
Yeah, people pulling papers.
Yeah, and so what they would do is, they was timid. They was scared. They was like, I have my little crew in prison or whatever. We all have our crew. They were like, hey, Charles, I'll pay you, if you make sure nobody don't try to, do anything to me or whatever. I said, listen to me. Nobody gonna touch you. I don't want your money. I'm financially blessed. I want your mind. I want your experience. What necktie do I wear at a meeting? How do you shake somebody a handshake to seal a deal? What words should I use to critique a conversation to optimize? I was a different type of character. So when I came out of prison, they didn't believe I went to prison because I was so articulate.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter again.
People don't have that. Most people don't have that.
Because I didn't see the red flag. When they know that you watching that, when they know that you acknowledge the red flag, they see that in you. What you acknowledge is what they see.
Yeah.
Right.
I was I well groomed myself when I got out. The handshake, yes sir, no sir. I always have charisma. Even in the streets, everybody said they love my charisma. So it was never about. And then I knew about the $10,000 bond. I says, look, let me give you an opportunity that may could be an opportunity for me. If I'm wrong about presenting what I'm presenting to you, you get a $10,000 bond from the government. They will pay you for hiring me. And if I don't meet the quota in a certain amount of days, you get a $10 check. Here it goes right here. Look it up.
Yeah.
But if I'm right, I will learn a skill set, become an asset, and I will make you more than $10,000. They looking at me like, what dude enforcement street guy talk like that?
Right.
The curiosity of that is why I got hired. And I became a behavioral specialist and a suicide counselor until I had to leave my job because when I upgraded on Empire, my boss, Tammy, who was a superb boss, and she told me in the offices, look, we need you, they need you. But if that's where you really need to be, just resign on a good note, boom. And that's what happened. So I never acknowledged the red flags. I acknowledged the green ones.
And I think that is a great
accomplishment too.
That's a great note.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think that right there, I want that part, especially for anybody that's watching. That's why I want y'all to really think about coming out of prison. Do not acknowledge the red flags. Acknowledge the green ones. What you acknowledge is what they see.
That's right. You have another. It is a book. You have another accomplishment. How much weight have you lost?
75 in counseling.
And where were you? You were up over 300 pounds.
Yes, and I wore it well. I was just like this big fat sloppy guy. I mean, I was a powerlifter type, but I was still unhealthy. This is keeping it real. And it was full because of Empire. You had Exhibit, a West Coast legend. They wanted the Suge Knight type to be his main goon. It made sense as far as the storyline. It made sense. But at some point, when you see these action movies like Marvel and all that stuff, and you want to be more athletic. So coming off the pandemic, I committed to get my life back physically. And yeah, I'm 260 now. I'm gonna do about maybe 30 more pounds. I'm 6'1", maybe about 30 more pounds. I'm gonna kind of see how my trainers. Shout out to the Iron Valley gang, Fabian, BJ, Jordan, and the rest of the crew. I'm trying to be in the next Marvel. I'm trying to be in the next Creed. I'm trying to be, so you have to look the part. And people understand. I see some of these actors, well, why they don't choose me? Look, the first thing about acting, before you even get to the audition or lines, you have to look the part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We say that in sales and in entrepreneurship.
There you go.
You are the product before you ever talk about the product, before you ever promote the product, before you ever say a line. You are what they're looking at before you ever even open your mouth. So that's very real, and that can be applied to so many disciplines out there. But here's what I love about it, and I want to end it with this. We have another show, a sister show called Becoming the Best You, BTBY TV. And what that means is that no matter where you are in life, you still have everything possible to become the best version of you.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to Charles D. Clark, actor, SAG, AFTRA, Telly Award winner, producer, what's yet to come? What's the next best version of you yet to come?
Ultimately, and Brother T, you said this, I want my testimony, my story to be a movie.
I think you've got some connections that might be able to help you do that.
I'm still working on some. It's like again, it's God doing it, but it's some things. It's brewing, because we know cinematic presentations it affects the world. How many movies? I mean, to summarize what I'm about to say, during the pandemic, what was one of the biggest things besides God? I'm gonna say God first. Me personally, God first. We definitely needed God in the pandemic. Secondly, Netflix TV One, HBO. They had some of the highest ratings because all you could do most was be in your house. There
Yeah.
was a time where us actors, the previous work that we have done, and things that was serenading families across the world during the pandemic. Look at that responsibility of us actors and filmmakers and producers. Look how it kept some sanity in the homes of people.
Yeah.
It had to, because people don't know how to react
Yes,
anymore to crisis, because everything is so instant right now, gratitude right now, things right now. So when they were forced to basically have all that taken from them because we couldn't
yes,
shop and do whatever, they know how to react. I taught biology for a couple of years to a group of high school students, and I asked them, "Do you think you're smarter than people in the 1500s?" Yes. Why? Well, because we have this and because we have that, and we have blah, 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 and they didn't have a car. We've created all this technology. And I said, okay, if you had no power and no internet, can you grow a garden? Well, no, I
wow,
just go to the store. Do you know how to grow the garden to get it to the store? So if it's end of days time and there are no stores, are you smarter than the ones in the 1500s? They're like, I never thought of it that way. We've lost our knowledge on how to do things
yes,
without the phone or the internet, or so technology has kind of dumbed us down, I personally think. I mean, I like it. It's easy. It makes things easier. I love being able to connect with people, but it's made us lazy.
I would read a book than reading some on the internet
Hmm.
any day because just that ground and work a foundation of just absorbing the knowledge in a different way. So yes, I agree with that.
When I was incarcerated, women didn't even know how to do math to buy their commissary orders because they're so used to using a calculator. So I'm doing my longhand on my paper and my pencil, and and they're like, "What are you doing? Can you do mine?" Well, no, I'm not doing yours. But yeah, because you could only get so much per week, and we had a $60 limit, so you had to make
Mhm.
sure it all added up, and they were just filling it out, and when they hit the 60, well, you better put the things on the list you want first, is all I can say,
Yeah,
because when that $60 hit, you weren't getting the rest of the list. But that was their mindset. They
yep,
didn't even know how to do math
yep, exactly,
outside of +2 is 4. Yeah.
So
exactly.
so speaking of mindset, I want to ask you, Charles, there's somebody who's going to watch this
Hmm.
that may be out there hustling right now. They haven't found that road that ultimately may be leading them to incarceration 101. They think they got the world in front of them. They know of God, but like you said, you were ignoring them, not giving them the time of day. What would you say to that younger Charles right now about changing their mindset in order to maybe even avoid incarceration and to become a fabulous future person? What would you say to that Charles right now?
Believe in you.
Yes.
I think the minute that you stop believing in yourself, you will believe what other people want you to be.
I lived that life.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Hmm.
every a locksmith will never make a lock that doesn't have a key to go to it.
Yes.
So
So
I also believe that I didn't believe in myself to be fabulous or be a professional actor. I was a person for the moment, and yes, moments and milestones are important, but look at the overall picture. Where do those milestones and moments lead to? What is the bigger picture? And if you don't believe in yourself, you will never see the bigger picture. You only see the now picture.
That's right.
Because if people could actually see what they could become, half of these people will do what they're doing now. But when you live in the moment, it's just what's in that moment.
that's some great words. And I'm glad you decided to believe in you. I'm glad you decided not to just make count the seconds while you were incarcerated, but you made the seconds count, and you came out on the other side, and you are living a fabulous life. You're living an unstoppable life, but that's a whole nother show. You have gone from felon to fabulous, and we thank you for taking time out to be here on the From Felon to Fabulous show. We're going to throw up on the screen a couple of ways that you can reach this phenomenal person here known as Charles D. Clark. If you want to reach out to him on social media, you can reach out to him on Facebook, and you can see that great picture with him, actor Charles D. Clark on Empire. If you want to check him out on Twitter, or if you want to check him out on IG, there's his handles right there. If they want to reach out to you directly, is there an email or is there a website where they can reach out to you, Charles?
Well, yes, my website is currently being upgraded, but my email that I respond to the most is cclarkinspire2016@gmail.com. So cclarkinspire2016@gmail.com.
And we'll put that up on the screen right before we end the show. But any final thoughts from you and from Brenda before we end the show?
I just want to say, once again, give God the glory. Thank y'all for having me on this wonderful platform. It's much needed. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my testimony and what God has done for me. To everybody who's watching this, continue to support and follow these two great icons, not just in entertainment or Hollywood, but just for Godlywood. Godlywood, the kingdom. There's nothing bigger than the kingdom. So when you have two people such as these two great servants, kings and queens who's doing great things, these are the people that we need to support. Support those who want to make tomorrow a better day, or as Brother T said, an unstoppable day. And to all the ex-felons out there, remember, remove the X, remove the Y, and just do the do.
Good for you, yes. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your testimony. I appreciate your kingdom work. Somebody's got to do it, so let's do it together.
Let's rise together. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you guys for joining us here on From Felons to Fabulous. Just like Charles said, you can be fabulous if you give it all to the glory of God and you walk in your purpose. You too can go from felon to fabulous too. Hey, if you're interested in being a guest, being interviewed on the From Felon to Fabulous show, you know what to do. Go on over to www.fromfelontofabulous.com and fill out the contact form, and someone from the team will get in contact with you. And who knows, you may be the next guest on From Felon to Fabulous. For Brenda Ringwood and Charles D. Clark, I am your host, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge. As we always say in parting, don't just make it a great day, make it an unstoppable day. And we'll see you next time on From Felon to Fabulous.